I failed my first son. We grew up in that oppressive kind of system that basically meant that we learned to just hold it in, and we beat our children and our wives. Because if you grow up in that system, that's what it creates, men who are not articulate in their emotionality. So as an African, I had to learn later in life when I had my own children that, the way I was taught to express myself is not helpful at all. I'll have to find a new way to deal with the emotion. I may have to listen more. I may have to speak less. I'm a hugger. My boys, we hug them and kiss them when they were little. Why does it have to stop now? We raise our children and they go out there. The world out there doesn't love them back. If we don't give them that, where do we expect them to get it? It's like sometimes my son will come. I know my older boy, he'll come from work. And then I'm like, I know something ain't right. I'm like, come.
Oh.
Remember a couple of times just coming in and just bursting into this uncontrollable tears until
Wow.
it subsides. There's nothing as beautiful as being able to feel that you are able to do the thing and no one will judge you for it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This year has been full of surprises and this might be the biggest one yet. I never thought I would have a man on my channel from my own hometown, someone that I've grown to admire so much from the videos that I've seen that he makes on TikTok. I would like to introduce you to Uncle Lou, aka Lungani Swanda. Thank you for joining me, Uncle Lou, on my channel to discuss some very deep topics that pertain to men's health, mental health, and well-being. Please introduce yourself and let us know what you're all about.
Well, to be honest, you have said all I am all about. I'm just a traveler like many of us. I think one thing I am learning more about me and the places in which I inhabit. And I think that has been my journey for a while. I question a variety of things, and I always say, conversation is out of bounds when it comes to what I do, simply because it's about allowing each other to be able to speak our truth, if that's even a thing. So I am who I am just because I am, for lack of a better explanation.
The
Yeah.
funny thing is I understand.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And yeah, this is how he is, and this is exactly why he's here, because I'm just mind blown. I don't know if you are a boomer or you are a Gen X.
So I was born in 69, which means I am probably like on the later side of the boomer
Yeah.
generation. So yeah.
Well, you're definitely the first boomer I've been able to talk to
Is
about
it?
such topics. So thank you for all that you're doing and the opportunity to have you here. I wanted to talk to you about what I will likely title this video, which is Strong Enough to Feel African Men, Emotions, and Healing.
Okay.
So let's get into it.
Mhm.
In your opinion, what does it mean for an African man to be emotionally intelligent? And what happens when men finally talk about how they feel?
I think, to be honest, it's one of the norms that have been challenging for a while. In the space I work in my current space. I work for a mental health charity, and it's a project called the Black Barbers Project, which started off. The idea was to kind of support barbershops. The barbershop conversation. Barbershops are deemed as the safe space for men to talk about the issues that pertain to them. Usually, when you go to a barbershop, men will talk about anything from the troubles they are having at home to what's happening at work and everything and in between. And so we're supporting that. But I have a co-worker, a friend I have actually worked with in a previous environment. I used to be a lecturer at one of the colleges here in Sheffield. I have worked in the arts, so the creative arts, even like prior to coming to here to the UK, I worked in the arts back in Zimbabwe as an actor. I worked in film, I worked in theater. And then when I came here, I also had studied at the Zimbabwe College of Music in Harare, back home. And so I came armed with this, kind of this creative aspect of who I am. But what this space in this part of the world has opened up is a questioning of, the things I deemed as the norm, how we view ourselves as men, how we navigate this maleness. Because if I mean, coming from where we come from, men have their own space that basically defines who they are as men. And so for those people who find themselves in the liminal space, which is in the in-between space, where they are looking at what's actually been given to them as their role as men, when they suddenly question what maleness means they should navigate life, then they are dimmed a little bit. Like they're neither here nor there. You know what I'm saying? So in this space, one thing you will realize is in the course of our conversation is that my mind flees back and forth. I'm still waiting for my diagnosis, ADHD and stuff. So my thought process is slightly, all over the place, but it will make sense eventually if you get what I'm saying. So we were never taught how to articulate our emotionality as men. They'll tell you, if you were being punished, I will give you something to cry about. So we learned to be quiet, even in the most excessive punishment we were getting. We learned to be quiet. We saw that in our schools. We saw that at home. We saw that even in our politics. Because, I was saying to somebody that we used to go to these public cinemas, like a Bioscope, for those who know. There you will be in a queue about to pay your money. There will be a guy walking around with a cane or a whip, so that if you moved out of line, out of the queue, they will beat you to go back into the queue. You have your money to pay to go see a movie, and then there's these, people who think that you have to toe the line. So I grew up with that idea within that space, which meant that we were constantly constrained. We were constantly put in a space that actually meant that a traumatic space, if I may call it that way, because you are always hyper vigilant. You're always on the back foot, because the policeman can put his hands on you. The teacher at school can put the hands on you. The government official can put their hands on you. And there's nothing you can do about it. You see what I'm saying? So we grew up in that oppressive kind of system that basically meant that we learned to just hold it in and keep quiet. And we went home and beat our wives. You see what I'm saying? We beat our children and our wives. Because if you grow up in that system, that's what it creates. Men who are not articulate in their emotionality. So as an African, I had to learn later in life, when I had my own children, that, the way I was taught to express myself is not helpful at all. I'll have to find a new way to deal with emotion. I may have to listen more. I may have to speak less. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know if that actually even goes in any way to answer your question. So it's something that's been foreign to us, for many of us, you know.
But what got you to the point of self-reflection?
I have always been the weird kid. I was the
Okay.
weird kid. Uh, where I am, who I am now, has always been who I was. Weirdest thing, the weirdest thing I was talking to my missus recently, and she's saying, I like, cause it's like I spoke about ADHD and trying to kind of find a diagnosis, which hopefully will be in the next few weeks. I like, cause there was a moment of self-reflection. I've always been my biggest critic in terms of how I navigate spaces, cause let me put it this way. I studied at the Zimbabwe College of Music. This is the first time, actually, I left home at 16, went to my grandparents. No, I was raised by my grandparents. Moved back to my parents at about 8, 9. Couldn't wait to leave my parents' home at 16. Moved back to my grandparents' flat in Makokoba to then leave that space to go study in Harare, Zimbabwe College of Music. In Harare, it was the darkest moment of my life. I am on my own. I have got my own space. I am making my own money. I'm working in film as an actor, and I'm at the Zimbabwe College of Music. I'm studying music, but it was the darkest moment of my life simply because I found access. I've got girls, you know what I'm saying? So, but in that space of finding, we think love or whatever, turned out to be the most difficult space for me simply because then I came across beautiful young ladies who some I later got in contact with, because in my head, I'm like, why is it that there's always this thought at the back of the mind that there's always been this sense of that what was so difficult about that time for me in Harare, simply because I think until I spoke to one young lady who told me that I was a jack, really. No, actually,
Wow.
she didn't even use those words. She told me about how we interacted.
Oh,
Like
dear.
sometimes there are certain things that we don't, certain subject areas we don't broach, or certain things we don't broach later in life because we are in like this total denial. We are the good guy now. But then nobody really actually looks back at the carnage that they have left behind them.
Oh,
And
wow.
in me speaking to this young lady, she basically, she was the most person who actually gave me such a rundown. It was humbling. And I had to take it. I'm like, man, I was a jerk. But somehow I always had that clarity that for me, because remember, most of the things that we do as people, we have never been taught. We
Mm.
saw people, kind of interacting, relationships, but no one ever set us down that one day you're gonna like girls, and girls,
Mm.
you know, and this is how you're gonna have to treat them. I didn't
Wow.
know that.
Wow.
So that basically for me was my initial, this was like my initial journey, step towards a journey of reforming. There are certain
Mm-hmm.
things that we do without thinking, and we normalize them. And then we become this thing that down the line is not for everyone. That's why sometimes I say, I am not for everyone, because I know where I have been and what I have done. And I do understand that there are some people who probably kind of look at me and think, oh, what's he doing there? We know him as this. And to be
Yeah,
honest, I am okay with that simply because I know the journey I have taken. You know what I'm saying? We learn, and we hopefully we become better. I don't believe that once you learn, you should go back to the ignorance that you used to be. There are some people who say, oh, yeah, he's always been a good guy. But I'll be lying to say that I think I've always been a good guy. I think there
wow.
were times, there are certain things that I didn't do right. And I have been hoping that in this journey is a way of actually not only redeeming myself, but basically it's like this lifelong apology tour for my existence in my former self, if I can even put it that way, you know. So
That is so
that's how I
powerful.
sort of started on this thing. I became aware, you know.
So we thank God for that lady who told you the truth.
Yeah, and
She was,
there are men who need to actually, because that's the thing. I think, you know what I tell my sons? I say to them, the only way, if you want to learn more about women, ask a woman. No, yeah, simple. Because many of us, let me tell you, as guys, as we sit down and talk about our issues, a lot of those things could be easily be fixed if we sit down with with our sisters, or with the ladies that we have
that's
in our life.
true.
You know what I'm saying? Because then, unless you know what she's asking you to do, you'll just go and do what you think is the solution to what she's dealing with. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. Already getting deep.
Hmm.
That's very powerful. And yeah, I'm very thankful for that lady for telling you the truth, and but
Hmm.
also you asking for the truth. Not many people do that, so I commend you for that.
We learn. We learn.
Some people don't like it. Lots of
No,
people don't like it.
no, but that's the thing. You know, the initial conversation. You know, like the initial conversation you have with somebody, and they tell you something about yourself. It's usually met with a discomfort, right? We are usually
Mm,
uncomfortable when people tell us about ourselves.
yeah.
But then when you sit in it, you suddenly realize, well, because there are certain truths we don't admit to ourselves, or
Mm,
we know our nature. Let me tell you, if somebody says they are not aware of the nonsense that they get up to, they be lying. We know, we just that we don't know at what level that nonsense is known at. You know what I'm
okay.
saying? Reality is
Yeah.
many of us we just behave like it's the norm, you know. Unless we are deluded in a way, chances are we will believe our own hype. That's why for me,
Yeah.
when somebody says to me, you are all this or blah blah blah, I you know that sense of I remember someone saying, I believe half of what I see and none of what I hear. Simply because even like what you see is not necessarily the whole story. And sometimes our own journey brings us to the point where we are. Maybe like this conversation we are having, it's been a lifelong journey to here.
Mm,
And somehow because we are where we are, either social media or whatever, all we are dealing with is this little miniature. We are surviving on sound bites. And sometimes the sound bite can be misleading because it doesn't really give us a fuller picture of what we are dealing with. So I'm always aware that even when people say, oh, yeah, you did good there. I'm saying, but yeah, I did good there. Wait until you see what I do after I leave this space. You know what I'm saying? So we constantly have to kind of either recalibrate how we see ourselves or how we deal with each other. But my thing, and everybody I interact with is knows this, is that I'm a believer that anyone who comes into our space should live a better version. Like us as Black people, we go into somebody's if we go into somebody's house, we usually leave it cleaner than it actually was when.
Mm.
Why can't we do that in how we interact? Why can't we make sure that our interaction is so rich in experience that when we leave those the conversations we have, somebody's like, I like what so and so said, or I'm glad I had this conversation. Because there are some people we interact with and it's like, I don't really want to speak to that person again. You know what I'm saying? So
Well, I know for sure. Every time I see your videos, I always feel the way that you say you want to leave people. So you are living it. Trust me.
mm.
You do make us think and self-reflect, and you're just sitting there like, oh, why did you
Hey,
make this video?
let me tell you something. Most of the conversations that I post are usually the ideas that I am either working through or a situation that I am going through.
Well, you are edifying us, trust me.
Edifying.
Sometimes, sometimes I skip because I'm like, I'm not ready for this.
Come on, come on.
Honestly.
Oh,
And
oh
I
no.
have to go back at another point.
Yeah, go
But that just shows you your impact if people can't handle it.
on. Oh no.
So, coming from all of that, I wanted to talk about fatherhood. I know it's a tangent, but when you became a father, what did you actively decide to do differently to what you had experienced and what you had seen from your parents, from your peers, from family members? Because it sounds like you were very intentional. I'm sure you were very intentional when you got married. So, in
Yeah,
terms of your romantic life too, but in particular, raising sons,
yeah.
what did you
Well,
decide to do?
this is the thing. One thing that I have a previous son, my son who's your age in South Africa, Wesley. Wesley Cele. I was a, I have always been a terrible father when it came to him. He was born when I was young. He was born, you know how it is back home. Like you make somebody becomes pregnant, and then the family basically takes you down this road of there's always some financial something attached to it.
Mm.
And I think for me, I didn't handle that very well. But also because I had to come this part of the world. So in me moving over here and the struggles I had to deal with over here, somehow I didn't really. I'll say this is one of the things that if I could go back in time and change, this is one thing I would love to change because I didn't really parent my son. You know what I'm saying? I left it to the mom, and even when the mom passed, I didn't even know, and I lost touch with him until like later in life. You know what I'm saying? You know how it is. Like somehow, I think there's this thing sometimes that we in our liaison, male and female, sometimes we use our children as a bargaining chip, which sometimes is not helpful. You know what I'm saying? For starters, when I wanted access to my son, you had to pay, a certain, even to actually have him have my name. There were certain figures which I couldn't afford. My money has always been tight. I always talk about this very openly. That like sometimes how we present and the real reality are two different things. Sometimes people all they do is like, oh yeah, he's at the Zimbabwe College of Music, therefore he has money. he is doing the A, B, C, and D, therefore he has money. But one thing no one ever knew is the fact that as the eldest, you know why as the eldest child of any household, you somehow, in the absence of a father, you take on the role of, so from the moment, I'll say from 1988, when my father passed, I assumed that role. So when I went to the Zimbabwe College of Music, I talk about the dark moment in my life. It was under that. So everything I did was as if I was living somebody else's life. Because once suddenly you have responsibility you never knew you could have. And therefore the way you interact with people sometimes is so dismissive. And I think in 91, when my son was born, I was deep in that space of disregard for everybody else except what I was dealing with. I had lost a father. Every liaison or every relationship I had was from this pain-filled space that I forgot that other people have feelings. You see what I'm saying? And also, if you remember, I'm part of a generation that we didn't talk about stuff. As much as we listened to the Lionel Richies and stuff and quoted, lyrics from their songs and wrote them in letters, but that's all it was. We didn't really sit behind those lyrics and understand what the sentiments of what the Lionel Richies or those other, kind of songwriters were talking about. So we somehow coned our way into people's hearts. You know what I'm saying? We duped young ladies into thinking that we knew what we were talking about. But in essence, we didn't really have an understanding of what we were doing. And in my case, I was clueless. I literally was so clueless about anything to do with relationships and stuff. Even now that I am relearning. So I failed my first son. When I got married, I have two boys, in my relationship. And from the outset, I was like, I am not going to do what was done to my eldest. And I have tried. I have a grandson who I haven't met yet, but I would love to go and see him. And besides him both of them being in South Africa, is complicated enough because I'm afraid of South Africa. Maybe we will talk about that at some point, where my fear stems from. But I'll say now, having my sons, hence why I have tried so much to at least make sure that they have, I'll say, like a wide space to learn. Not only learn about themselves, but to learn about females, about relationships and all that kind of stuff. And I have what I call adopted daughters because I've only got sons. And these are my boys' sisters because I was aware that once they figure out how to interact with these females in their lives, maybe it will go probably like some way to actually get them to understand what they are dealing with when they are in a relationship. And I'm hoping that it will sink in. I know with my youngest, he's very intuitive. My other one he's a work in progress. You know what I'm saying? But one thing I've learned about as a father is having conversations, very candid conversations with your children, to me, because that's something I didn't have. I didn't have any conversation with my father. My father was there, I'll say at some point. He was there, but he wasn't overly present. As that generation were, they were not overly present. They were there as long as they were feeding us and we were clothed and we had the roof over our heads. That's how far their role became. So in terms of nurturing, That never was. So for me, I had to learn that, once you bring these little humans into your life, you have to take care of them outside just feeding them and burping them when they are fed, and you know what I'm saying, and changing their nappies. There is more to that than just, being there as a father. Because I know for some of us as men, we just like the fact, oh, you got a son? Yeah, I got a son. I've got a now I know my name is gonna move forward and stuff, you know what I'm saying? But we never really know that there's a lot of other things to deal with.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm learning. Still a journey.
I really admire it when, like, the way you speak about it. I said it in my video with Amai Healer that there's certain parents who can literally say the truth without any shame. For example, you said the words, "You failed your first son." Do
Mm-hmm.
you know how much it takes to say that? I think you don't see it anymore.
Mm.
I don't think you see how powerful it is for a parent to say those words. I think it's the most healing thing. If I heard that from my parents, I would be like, ah, I'm healed. Like, just, I don't know how to explain it, but just the level of awareness, the level of self-reflection, the fact that you don't carry shame for it, which means that your child now also doesn't carry the shame for it. Because when if you had had a daughter
Mm.
and you had said you failed your daughter, she would be the girl walking around here on this earth, people saying she has daddy issues,
Mm.
because it would be manifesting in her life in various ways. But as soon as the parent takes accountability, and you don't have to, it's not a specific sentence that needs to be said, but it's more like your attitude towards it, towards the past, and your attitude towards the future. I don't know how your relationship is with Wesley now. You didn't mention it, but I can imagine that it's not terrible.
That's the thing. It's like that's a conversation that I think, as much as I'll probably kind of send messages here and there, my hope is, if I didn't fear going to South Africa simply because, like you hear the horror stories about, us Zimbabweans being in South Africa is its own conversation. My fear is based in that thing, and also, my brother being murdered in South Africa. You see what I'm
Oh,
saying?
I'm so
So,
sorry.
so that basically, that to me has somehow shaped how I view South Africa. The closest I've ever been was when I traveled to Zimbabwe, and on my way back, I stayed at a hotel not too far from the airport, by the way, you know what I'm saying? So because that level, even though my son is there, so I didn't get to see him, and my grandson is there, and my younger brother lives in South Africa also, and my niece. So I had to ask them to come to the hotel so I could meet them. You know what I'm saying? Which again fills me with a level of shame, because I'm I'm a believer that we whenever you will always find what you're looking for. You know, you will find what you're looking for. Like when you go to a place expecting certain things to happen, sometimes they do somehow happen. Um, it was like reminiscent of the first time I went to the States. I was fearful because I had listened to all this nonsense, and I watched movies about this and that, and what made our go family in Miami and Fort Lauderdale and stuff. I'm thinking, Miami, it's this and this that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we actually we create the monster underneath our bed,
Yeah.
and then we are surprised when it does bite us, because we created that. And the same way I say there's a lot of things that we give power to, when in fact all we have to say is, you know what? I need to go and sit down with my boy. I need to go and play with my grandson, because nothing will give me more joy except that, being able to just spend time with them both and just, and just be. Because sometimes, like as much as they say our children, we always have a vacuum where the parent is not, because we are hoping that they'll come and fill it back. Us, I know in my business, there's always at a point I'm thinking, what if my oldest son was here? You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. What if my grandson was here? Because I think every person who has been in my life has fed me in some way, and they made me who I am, and they make me a better version of who I am. Sometimes that person we don't have could be the catalyst that actually changes either our journey or makes our journey move a little bit, a pace faster than it currently is. So I live with that hope that, in our interaction we will be able to probably kind of something amazing will come out of that. Because it's like a piece of you comes back, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And for him, I'm hoping, because I'm like, we talk about people being tactile. I'm a hugger. My boys, I love on them, and I am that guy. You know what I'm saying? I am that guy. So, and I make no apology for being who I am, because I'm a believer that without we hug them and kiss them when they were little. Why does it have to stop now?
Mm,
You see what I'm
exactly.
saying? So
Yeah.
even like my 27-year-old now, I still, kind of grab him when he's around. You know what I'm saying? I am that dude. You see what I'm saying? I am that guy. So, cause this is the thing. We raise our children and they go out there. The world out there doesn't love them back.
No,
You see what I'm saying?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
if we don't give them that, where do we expect them to get it? You see what I'm saying?
exactly. Yes.
That basically is why I am who I am. So I'm just hoping that I have a feeling, when I meet up with my boy, either I'll have to be brave enough to just go and say, I'm going to just spend a few days in South Africa and just take him out to brunch. My favorite meal of the day, brunch. So,
We know.
yeah. So that for me, that will be a fulfillment of a lifelong of 35 years, you know.
Does he watch your videos?
I think he does. I think he has seen one or two. You know what I'm
Why
saying?
do you say that?
No, I have seen, because he has no, he hasn't really commented, because Wesley doesn't really say much. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So he doesn't say much. It's the same. Like, let me tell you, the person I am, it took me a while. I lived in a book for many years. I mean, I'll sit and read and stuff, and I think for me, why I lived in a book in my formative years was because everything around me was so crazy that you had to find a way to escape.
Mm.
Home was dysfunctional, and the environment. I mean, I grew up at a time when we walked on the other side of the street. You see what I'm saying? That in itself, basically, sometimes some of us, we are so aware of where we are and how things are happening. I lived through the Gukurahundi era, so that
Mm.
created this sense of a fear we didn't really articulate.
Yeah.
So when the opportunity came for me to even come to this part of the world, I didn't think twice. Actually, the first time I came, we were shooting a film, so I was in a movie, and we came, and I was like, you know what, I don't mind going back. So when the opportunity came, I seized it. You know what I'm saying? So when people ask me, why did you come over this? I'm like, I had to sit with it and say, I ran away. I ran away from home. You see what I'm saying? I ran away from home because I knew that eventually I will open my mouth. And you know how it is, when some of us open their mouths, and some are not here because they dare to open their mouth. And we don't speak
Yeah.
about that. Maybe
Yeah.
that'll be probably another conversation for another day. The reality is when you open your mouth about anything, when you have an opportunity, when you have an opinion about something, there's always somebody who's willing to push back. Which is why sometimes I listen when I watch your videos and I listen back, I'm like, this takes some serious sense of bravery, to be able to say what you say or to articulate what others people have always thought of, but they were never brave enough to say, in the words of my co-host on my podcast, Donald, he says, when you raise your head above the parapet, there's always somebody will see you. And then somebody will say, oh, let's cut it down a peg or two. So she knows, where her place is. But the consistency that you have had on your platform, to me, it shows that somebody who knows that what they are doing will serve somebody else. It will outlive you. It may not just be for you in just kind of navigating the space that you are at, but it will be for somebody who's dealing with that thing. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. So what we do is not necessarily just for us. When we decide that we are going to speak about the thing, it's because we suddenly realize that if not us, who? You know what I mean? So I think I went on
This
a
is
tangent.
my show.
Yeah,
You're not supposed to make me cry.
I went on a tangent. Ah, you know.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I was just saying, this is my show. Why are you making me cry?
Come on.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's why not everybody does it.
Yeah,
So,
true. That's true.
and yes, it's definitely not just for me. I mean, the messages I get, I feel obliged to
That's
continue.
it. That's it. Cause,
Yeah, I'm
cause
sure you get them too.
yeah, I have, like when yeah, a while back, my niece, I have another borrowed niece. She's on here, Isabel. Isabel was the one who basically said, "Oh yeah, I had just finished having a sort of speaking at my church, and she said to me, like, "Oh yeah, you know what you were speaking about? Would you like to? Why don't you put it on TikTok?" I was like, "What? I don't even know what TikTok is." So. Yeah, she was the one who basically planted the seed.
And look at you
But
now.
uh, now it becomes like a burden that you can't put down. It really does.
Not true.
Mm.
People love your videos. The whole of Southern Africa is a huge fan.
You think they probably think who's that old bearded, partly gray beard guy who thinks he knows?
No,
You know.
you'd be surprised. Probably everybody wants you to be their dad. Honestly.
Ah, let me tell you something. I have a good friend. Well, I haven't seen him for a while. Back in the day when my Benjamin, my boy here was young, he said to me, it's like, hey, have you ever thought of, kind of being a counselor or something and what have you? Because me and him used to chop it up, like sometimes men will sit down and just talk about everything and anything. I was like, something, bro, I don't really want to kind of come off as disingenuous in this. I don't, because I have a boy that I'm trying to get through. At that time,
Mm.
my boy was like in his formative years. And I was aware that, because sometimes we do so much to a point that our children see us do so much, and then they start asking the question, but how come he's not doing this much with me? You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? That kind of thing where we become, I became Uncle Lou to a point that it's sort of like, when in fact I was just Benjamin's dad and Jacob's dad. You know what I'm saying? And for
Yeah.
me, that worried me, because I remember when I made the conscious effort that if any job took me away from spending time with my boys, I would leave. You see what I'm saying? And I have been in certain employment. I mean, we'll probably kind of get into this, especially working within the church, the church space. The lines get blurry. For me, they became blurry because I suddenly found that I was doing the Christian thing, as a Christian and stuff, at the detriment of my own
Mm.
children's sense of being. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And again, it's another thing that if I was to go back, I would change. Yeah, some people would think, oh yeah, that was the best thing that I ever did. I served everybody. I was in service for everybody else. But in essence, my sense of who I am should be at my home. Because I'm responsible for these two humans. If they became terrible at life, I contributed to that
Mm.
because I didn't really nurture them, or at least share who I am with them. Because we will never really change who they are. But in essence, I think it's like I'm saying, if we infuse a little bit of positivity and at least, a sense of light to them, they can become better human beings. At least I hope, So those are probably like a couple of changes I would have made. I would have never, what do you call it, contributed so much in my in my religious proclivities. You know, I just kept it at home. I would have just kept it at home. You know.
I know what you mean.
hmm
That's probably true for a lot of people. Some people haven't realized yet, but maybe this hearing you say it will spark something.
Mm.
So, what would you advise a young man in Zimbabwe who feels alone with his emotions?
I think you know what. I think for me, one of the greatest weapons that we have is our emotions. I think God or the architect or whoever you deem him as, unkulunkulu, in his wisdom, he would have never given us the ability to feel if he didn't want us to. At least, experience that sense of the feeling, the ability to be able to understand your makeup. Because I think our emotions are part of who we are. At least that's what let me tell you, I have cried more as a father than I ever did as a kid.
Oh.
Because for one, it's like sometimes it's the frustration of looking at everything else and seeing what my children will have to deal with. Especially for me as a father of sons, the fear that there is some nefarious actor out there waiting for a black boy. So that sense of helplessness, because I live in a part of the world that doesn't really love us back. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. For me, let me love them. Let me overwhelm them with the love that I have so that they don't have to look for it elsewhere. So for that young man dealing with that emotionality, I think the awareness of our emotion and how great it is. if I am able to, me, it's like I've spoken about this on my podcast that, I cry at the drop of a hat. I'm an emotional wreck, for lack of a better term. It doesn't take much to trigger me about a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? But I have had to learn to sit in that and understand that. I feel, like I say to people, I feel too much. That sense of I feel too much. Like sometimes you are in a space with somebody and you sit with somebody and you just feel this sense of emotionality that you can't articulate. And I am that guy. I am that guy who will sit with you and just not say a word,
But feel everything.
but feel everything. And I think that has been because of the life that I have lived, the life that we couldn't say what we were going through.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't say what we were feeling to anyone. The things we had to go through, the abuse, we couldn't tell anybody. You know what I'm saying? I've spoken about the fact that the abuse, the sexual abuse that me and my brother, the one who passed, went through. Later in life, I remember basically breaking down in tears and saying to my wife, Stain, I didn't have anyone. We're being raised by my grandparents. We couldn't tell them. We didn't even know what we will tell them. You see what I'm saying? So now you have to grow with this thing. And they're thinking, had we had somebody we could talk to, it probably would have changed our lives, but we didn't have that. And that's what I'm saying, like for that young guy, probably kind of dealing with something, talk about it. The thing, let me tell you, everything we go through or we feel stems from something. And unless we talk about it, we will never have any resolve. And that thing of saying, man up and keep it in, I think is nonsense. It really is. And it has done more damage to us as men, as fathers, as husbands, just as men, more than anything else will, because we are denied a part of who we are. You know what I'm saying? And some people say, oh, yeah, never admit that in public. But when we are sitting on our own, and if we are aware of who we are and what's going on in our world, in our space, we will admit that, really this thing of kind of keeping it in and stuff, and then suddenly finding that you have headaches you can't articulate, or backaches here and stuff, or just you're feeling some type of way. Because there are certain things that I think God in his wisdom actually saw it. Because sometimes why is it that once you have a good cry,
You feel
you
better.
feel better, and you're getting like and that kind of thing. Because it's good for you. It's good for the body to be, as much as we exercise it. And I think we have to exercise our emotions the same way we love. Don't be afraid to cry, And
Wow.
and at least that's what I'm learning, or one thing I've been learning in the past few years is that, it doesn't serve me to actually sit in what I am dealing with, because I know eventually it will come out in some other way at the wrong time.
Yes.
Or maybe at the right time, but yeah.
Wow. That is beautiful. Thank you. I think hearing it from a man, a black man,
Hey,
is
they are
just...
more like me. They are
Sorry?
more. I'm saying there are more men who think like I do.
Yes, but they're rare.
You think? Let
Oh,
me tell you.
we're...
I go to a men's group on the first Friday of the month and the last Friday of the month. Two different groups, and like I say, I'm the guy who will ask the question, sometimes the weird question or the outlandish question, simply because I am aware that sometimes as men, there's this sense of we need to be given permission. You know what I'm saying? There's that sense of we need to be given permission to be able to do the thing. Once we are given permission, or we give because we will look around at other men and say, how are they doing life?
Yeah.
And then we feel, oh, yeah, let me do the thing. But sometimes there's that sense like we need to be given permission. It's this unspoken thing. It's like when another brother embraces you and say, it's okay. When your father embraces you and say, it's okay. It's game over. For many of us, I have had to hold my sons when they were feeling sometimes. It's like sometimes my son will come. I know my older boy, he'll come from work. And then I'm like, I know something ain't right. I'm like, come.
Oh.
Remember a couple of times just coming in and just bursting into this uncontrollable tears until it subsides. That's it. We won't talk about it. We'll just, let him feel it, let him go through it. And I think that's it. There's nothing as beautiful as being able to feel that you are able to do the thing and no one will judge you for it. No one will judge you for it.
You're finishing me.
Come on.
Yeah, that's my point. You see it as something small, and I'm just like, I'd pay millions for
come
this.
on. You wouldn't pay for this. Do you mind? Can you excuse me for a second?
Yeah.
1 second. 1 second, I'll be back. So how far is your book going?
Not far. Because I don't, it's my fault. I don't promote it enough. But I don't promote it enough because it's awkward to talk about,
What?
because it's like I'm promoting discord in family.
No, it's not. Remember, this is the thing. I think our story carries more weight than we think it does. Because remember, you have sat with this. And then for you may trivialize it, but it is a lifeline for somebody. When you look at it that way, you suddenly realize that whatever you do will benefit somebody. It's not for you to carry alone. You know what I'm saying? We are a village that will support each other when it's needed. So
Thank you so much.
So don't feel that you have to carry this on your own, because we are here and we understand, how important it is. We share the very bits and pieces we share is a piece of us.
Yeah.
So don't feel like, you have to bear this on your own.
Thank you. As you can imagine, being the eldest daughter, everything has been by myself, on my own. So I'm used to being my own everything. But
everything.
It's part of the healing to let people help me and embrace that. So
it takes a while.
Let
me tell you, it took me a while to actually even say, when somebody says something, and to say thank you. Thank you. At least, because it's like we talk about this, especially for us as men, we talk about this thing of just even like, because no one ever put their hand on their shoulder and say, you're doing okay. We didn't have that. So you learn not knowing how to, when somebody does that thing, you don't know how to respond to it. And also, like, being Black men and women, when somebody affirms us, we don't really know how to respond, because it's like no one has. It's like we just took it as just, what? Why should somebody affirm you for doing something that you should be doing anyways? You know what I'm saying? But a little encouragement sometimes goes a long way. And that's why for me, I think it's important that, if anything, we go back to the basics, especially when it comes to our children, of which you're one. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to our children, is to say, you know what, I see you. I see you and I see the work you are doing. If there's anything that I can do, I will do. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much.
You know, this conversation for me is the first hopeful of many. Keep touching base.
Yes. Just before I close, I wanted to give you an opportunity to let people know where they can find this content that I'm bragging about.
Content you're bragging about.
Where, besides TikTok,
Yeah.
where else do you pour your wisdom out into the
No,
world?
but this is the weirdest thing is the TikTok has only been the platform where I talk openly about a lot of things simply because
Okay.
I never really explored any other. As much as I'm on Instagram and I'm on YouTube, it's mostly the podcast. My podcast is on Spotify. Trims and
Okay.
Talk podcast on Spotify, and I'm working on this. Uncle Lou Speaks was my first podcast. It was also is my the musings of an old man. You know, this
I
was my
don't know
initial
about that.
podcast. Yeah. And then now, like Trims and Talk has been the one where we have had guests and had more conversations about men's mental health. But it'll be interesting to actually, because I've been looking under this concept of under construction, looking at our inception. When did we realize? When did that spark, kind of ignite, which became our purpose or our journey? You know what I'm saying? For me, has
Good
been,
question.
this thing that has been playing at the back of my mind because I'm aware that many of us, we don't talk, we don't get the opportunity to speak. So, and it's like giving the everyday guy an opportunity to say his piece. So that's the thing I'm working on. But you can find me on any of the social. Look for Lunganis Banda or Uncle Lou or you know. So
I'll put the links
yeah,
below so that people get it right.
yeah.
Oh,
But
thank you
yeah,
so much.
this for me, this no for me, this. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you. It. Yeah, I don't. I like I'm saying. The conversations between generations haven't really been are not out there. And
No,
I
they're
think,
not.
and I'm just hoping this probably is the beginning of something that will probably, because then it makes us also look at what the damage we have done or the things we have forgotten to say. Because sometimes we forget. Sometimes in our silence, we forgot to say the thing that needed to say. To tell our children we love them and that we wouldn't be who we are without them. Because we always think that you guys benefit from having us, but we benefit from having you because why are we doing what we are doing if it wasn't for you? You know what I'm saying? So for me, I would love to live a better world simply because I know you will be in it. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't want you to fight the battles that we had to fight. You know what I'm saying? That's what we have to do for our children. Make sure that it is we leave this earth a little bit better than we found it for our children. Build something that outlives us. At least that's what I'm hoping. These conversations will probably kind of help us to build something better. So thank you for inviting me. Initially I thought it was just a joke, so I was quick to actually get the the first date. No, yeah, but yeah, so I'm thankful
It
for
it
you, Pumzin.
it would never be a joke. It's actually overdue. I'm the one who's slow. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.